Saam, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Aaron, Saam, and Matt. Just a couple of product bros talking about product bro things.
Talking about product.
I don't think. Oh, everyone can see and hear us. Well, that's what it's saying. Cool.
Great.
Or are we live? I'm gonna ping Eliza. I'm not totally sure.
This is my first time using.
You are live.
We are live.
You are live. Everyone, welcome. So y'all can just get started. We have a wonderful tech talk about product today. So signing off. I'll let Aaron take it away.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad everyone got to see the behind the scenes. And you know what? Maybe that's a theme of today. Making some mistakes, some like rawness, some behind the scenes stuff. I'm not even mad. So I'm Aaron. We've got Saam from Microsoft, and we've got Matt from realnice, who also was early on the team at Venmo and Stash Invest, and had a product at Republic.com, and on and on. Real quick, Saam and Matt, can you guys give, like, I know it's hard to be concise, but just like the shortest versions of who you are, because I want to get right into the meat. I hate long background things, so I just want to get, like, people know you're good, but just like a little bit of what you've been working on.
Sure. Yeah, I could go first.
Sure.
I'm Amiri. I'm a Seattle native, so lived here my whole life. Went to the University of Washington, studied computer science, and then ended up at Microsoft as a product manager. In short, our team owns the engineering experience for retail and commerce across all of Microsoft.com. And I'm happy to go into more detail, but I'll just keep it at that for now.
Cool. And you do a ton of experimentation with things, right?
Yes.
Cool. I think experimentation is going to be a theme for today, especially in this new era we're moving into. And Matt, how about you?
Yes. So my background is in software engineering and product management. Spent pretty much 10 years doing product management and software engineering in the fintech space, most notably at Venmo and Stash and Republic. Now I'm freelancing and doing for a variety of companies and working on some of my own projects. Most recently, I was working on Jelly Jelly, which is a social video app that uses AI to help people generate social media content. But I'm working on a variety of things right now. So right now, a lot of things are 0 to 1, but I've done that as well as worked on more mature products as well.
Cool. So in the spirit of experimenting, I feel like you can't talk about product in 2025 without talking about the vibe coding stuff. I think we got to start there because it's making product people more technical. It's making experimentation faster. I feel like I wouldn't hire a product person in 2025 unless, the old joke is you must have 5 years of experience in vibe coding, even though it's obviously been around way shorter, but like still getting up to speed. Do either of you have any hot takes on this vibe coding moment that we're in that would maybe help someone do their job better if they're in product, or get hired into their next product role?
Good question. I can start. I've been experimenting around with AI for a while now, especially when you're building the beginnings of things. It's a lot of fun to mess around with what you can make quickly. So I definitely feel like I've got a good amount of experience on the vibe coding side of things. I think for me, there's at least 2 takeaways, which is the first one is very much the ability to create custom apps or tools that you might use for your day-to-day work internally. The propensity to be able to do that easily has gone way up. I remember when I was a part of larger organizations, one of the most frustrating things was that there weren't products to solve stuff, and a lot of times leadership or the organization wasn't ready to adopt something that solved my problem for me. And it was usually part of a suite of tools or something that the whole enterprise would have to buy into. And so the ability to solve your own problems in the product organization and engineering organization, I feel like has gone way up. And I think that is very empowering to people in product. The other thing that I would say is amazing is the ability to prototype new ideas has also gone way up there. It's so much easier to do that now than before. And so I think one trend we might be starting to see is that it's just so much easier to show an idea than perhaps to describe it. And so spending a lot of time on a 10-page document describing something might actually take more time than just building a quick prototype with vibe coding or something like that. So I think that also is shifting.
Real quick, Matt, because I'm a tools nerd, what's your prototyping stack right now? So someone comes and they're like, hey, the classic business person on the team is like, we wish we had a tool to do this. How quick can you make a prototype? Like, what's your fastest stack?
So it depends on what you're trying to do. But for things that are fairly custom and self-contained, right now I'm using an IDE. So I've been using Cursor for the past 6 months, but I'm also trying out Windsurf, which is interesting. Makes slightly less mistakes, I would say, and is a little bit more thoughtful. So I'm using those with some of my preferred stacks, right? So using Next.js, Supabase, and those types of things to get something off the ground very quickly, because you can use all those tools basically for free and get something deployed very quickly.
Right. But
so
you
I'd
are
say that's kind of my stack right now.
you are more technical, obviously. Less
Yes.
technical, maybe
Yes.
you use more like a Lovable or a Bolt.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that I have worked on a couple things where what I've done is I've started something in Bolt, and then I've exported it and finished it in like Cursor, for example, sometimes. So that also can be useful as well.
Makes sense. Let me kick it over to Saam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that's great to hear, Matt. I think I'm in a similar boat here. I think I really resonated with your part about the speed to experimentation has definitely increased substantially. I think even just getting alignment from the team of like, hey, here's what we want to do and here's what it could actually look like is amazing versus going over like a 10-page document. I think the piece on the 10-page document as well, a superpower for me recently has been PRD generation in minutes versus hours, right? It's like spending that time refining it rather than like getting writer's block or thinking over, everything. So it's just been very impressive, even with, I've tried a various degree of like free tier of a ChatGPT versus paid versus Copilot, and they're all performing pretty well.
I kind of agree with that, by the way. I think model wise, don't worry too much. Like I've switched between them a bunch. It's not that crucial to use one versus another right now, at least for these purposes. Yeah.
I do think it's fair to say if you're not using some sort of AI to write your first draft of your PRDs, are you effing up? Like what are you even doing? Who even likes, like, no one ever liked writing PRDs, right? Like and their first draft is going to be better what you did anyway. And I know he's like a little controversial in certain ways, but I do like Scott Galloway's line about AI that like AI is probably not going to take your job. Probably someone that knows AI better than you is going to take your job and is actually using ChatGPT to write the first draft of the PRDs.
I think that's a fair hot take. I know we were talking a little bit before behind the scenes about hot takes. And I think from the perspective of a very large company like Microsoft, where, PRDs are created, very often, and sometimes they're thrown away if it doesn't make sense for the business. So in that case, it's like, those few hours you just spent just went to waste. So now being able to generate those in, sheer minutes is really a time saver for you to spend your time on the more important things. So totally agree with that. I think you definitely have to embrace AI in this new generation.
Sure. Although I'm not going to let you off the hook. Embrace AI. Not a hot enough take, Sam. Give me something even hotter. Like something maybe from a big company perspective, right?
I mean, I don't know what I can say on record here, but no,
this is all off the record. Everyone has signed the friendier.
I mean, I'll talk about like a side personal project just for fun.
Cool.
Keep it vague. Of the time to get feedback, and this is all through AI. Get feedback on a potential startup idea, and receive that feedback, and then actually have AI generate a pitch deck. Like the span of time that now you can go like full cycle on a business idea is just incredible. And the hot take is, well, if you're not using AI, you're weeks behind.
Fair enough. Okay, so AI is on one side of the spectrum. Something that I feel very strongly about is that as there's going to be more AI, there's also going to be more AI slop out there. That's my term that I've coined, AI slop. I think we've seen it, coming from Twill. There's a lot of like AI job boards and that try to use AI matching, and some of it is really good, and I think it will get really good. But also right now, lots of AI slop in the form of you used to get lots of nonsense applications to jobs. Now AI is applying on behalf of other people, and you're getting even more nonsense candidates. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that humanness will also become more important in product, as well as I guess another way to say it is like taste. But also we've gotten compliments at Twill for feeling human, intentionally having a human in the loop. What are some things that both of you do when you're working on products to try to make them more human? As much as AI is big, like how do you put more humanity into what you're building, and like what's your process there, and how can other people make their products more human?
Good question.
Yeah. And maybe it's fun, maybe it's silly, that then you start to think about like what does it mean to be human? I guess it could be
Yeah.
like a little bit of personality, a little bit of sense of humor, a little bit of honesty, a little, because ChatGPT, it's very sanitized, it's very safe, it's very
Yeah, I have a little bit of a take on this, which
yeah.
is, I think that we are all becoming editors, and that's great. It's bad news for the folks that are really good at creating. I think specifically when you were talking about, the build process. Obviously, not every creator everywhere, but with making products, we're becoming editors, and what's happening is, you have to be in the loop, and a lot of that doesn't change from, I think, previous product management work before AI, which is understanding what's the user psychology, what are the emotions they're going through, and applying something that is very relevant to them. One thing that I see AI is not very good at these days is being funny and coming up with good branding or names. I will tell you right now, I have not found it very good for brainstorming names or coming up with good names. And I think there's certain creative aspects there that it's just not very good at. And so making sure that you inject that and choose the right thing or decide on something based on that human psychology to put in that moment of celebration, or to say, wait a second, we're gonna actually hold back here. We're gonna limit the user here. A lot of those things I don't think have changed that much in the age of AI. I think we still need to think about those things and talk to customers, get the feedback, understand what they're going through. And I don't think AI is that good at processing those things and coming up with really good creative ideas to solve all of them.
Yeah, I think I'd add on to that. That's a great take. I think your point about us becoming more of an editorial role is what I've seen as well, and I think that also lets us focus on the things that really matter. It's like, okay, generally the fluff is built, but now how can we make this super connected to our user base and make them love the product versus like building this whole mock-up to begin with that takes up all this time. So I think,
and that I think is
go ahead.
that's like an optimistic, or like, I think a good takeaway for me at least, which is that you get to work on the harder and more valuable stuff, right? And you spend less time worrying about where to place a box or something,
Totally.
Yeah.
Saam, any ways that you're putting more humanness into the stuff you're working on at Microsoft? Like, because sometimes you the story that I have in my head is that at big companies, that's also harder to do. And yet you are experimenting, you're doing things in IRL spaces. Is there anything that's worked really well? That folks at larger companies might be able to at least try out.
I think it's a similar take to Matt's of like understanding the customer psychology, but also at a larger company, it's maybe a little more methodical and kind of you got to take your time. Things don't move necessarily as quick because you can't do something that works really really well for a certain group of customers, but then totally mess up the experience for others. So you got to really consider, at least at Microsoft scale, like a billion monthly active users, right? So understand, what are we generally trying to achieve? How can we make the most amount of people as happy as possible and enjoy our experience and control, the metrics we can control. But yeah, I think just like being in the loop, like what you mentioned, even with Twill, like this experience of like having humans in the loop is very important. I think like Scott Galloway's point of, like AI is not taking over product manager jobs. Product managers that are using AI are taking over those jobs, right? It's not like a person that doesn't have that experience and that take in that industry. They have those chops and they're able to use it much quicker.
Fair. I want to go back to something that I think combines humanness and like the speed of building. I was talking to someone last week that used to work on a major presidential campaign. I won't say who it was because this is apolitical. But he used a thing that stuck with me. He goes, for a long time, people, especially in product, very proudly were like, I'm data driven. Remember all those shirts like of everyone being like, I'm data driven? And he goes, screw that. What we would always say on this presidential campaign is, we're not data driven, we're data inspired. And maybe we don't need to like A/B test every little thing. And maybe, the Eric Ries book, The Lean Startup, messed all of us up a little bit, when it came out 15, 20 years ago, when it was so expensive to just like get anything off the ground. You had to like spin up your own servers. You had to hand code everything, and, you didn't have all these frameworks. And, so back then you had to be careful. Maybe now you don't actually have to be as careful. You can be a little more, where like, it's not, if you say, I'm not data driven, I'm data inspired. It's more like, we don't have to maybe analyze everything. We don't need to have all the data. We just need enough that, we can go with a hunch and we can go with our intuition and we can be a little more like artists. Do you still believe, like, do you still consider yourself like data driven, or obviously, where I feel, feel free to push back, or like offer an option C, but that's where I feel like the world is moving. What do you guys think?
I'm happy to jump in. I think like, what is it? The Ford story of like the car, of, how they went about creating the car. And, if you ask the customers what they wanted at that point before the car, they would say a faster horse. And, so it takes like some understanding of like the actual needs and obviously inspiration of like, here's generally what they want. But then it's up to like the leaders to understand, like, how can we take that and create something that will kind of very much stick with this customer base. So I think as simple as like an ice cream shop example, it's like if you have like 100 flavors, customers have a problem choosing, right? It's like, make it a little more curated, maybe a few seasonal flavors, make it easier on them. Don't make them have to make these tough decisions.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, and I think that it's all about trying to make better decisions, right? But it's similar to, do you know the phrase, like, people say the customer's always right. Well, it turns out that it was actually, that's half of the phrase. The phrase was actually, the customer's always right in matters of taste, right? Not in everything, right? And I think that's similar to data driven, right? Like, you want to be data driven, so that you can be more efficient or better at your decision making, right? And so there's a lot of decisions where you have to ask yourself, is it worth actually doing this test? Like, what's the downside of not testing it and just making a decision right now? Sometimes that's the actually best path. It's more efficient, and you can make a reasonably good decision that way. And stuff like the lean startup, they weren't essentially saying test everything. They were trying to actually inspire people to test things more cheaply, especially, Aaron, when it was more expensive to actually get a website up there and test and do anything, right? So why spend 6 months or a year building out a product that you haven't even tested yet, right? So I approach it the same way with, trying to test a new idea or trying to use data to inform is, you know, can I test this cheaply and easily? And if that answer is no, and it's starting to bog down the progress of the product or the progress of the team or the customers, then you have to find a different way to make a better decision, or to make a reasonably good decision. And that's not always test the hell out of everything from a data-driven A/B test. But sometimes that's exactly what you should do.
Fair enough. Makes sense. All right. Well, we're Twill. We're obviously going to pivot this to hiring at some point. You've both been on both sides of the hiring table. What is something like specific or tactical that a candidate has done in the past, or that like you wish that a product, like someone going for a product role that you were looking to hire for, was something that you wish they would do that like barely anyone does? How do we give folks watching a little bit of an unfair advantage, in your opinion, when it comes to getting a competitive product role? Because we know that this space is competitive, and there's a lot, there, yeah, it's competitive. What do you tell? What do you tell? And or like another way to say it is, what do you really tell your close friends who are like, hey, I'm going out for this role in product. Like, how do I really stand out?
Mm-hmm. I can go. I have a couple things that I would impart, which is, number one, like product, especially product management, is such a wide ranging role. It can be very different at different companies, and so when you're interviewing for product roles at different companies, those actual roles and the dynamics of it and what the hiring manager cares about can vary much more wildly than other roles. And so my first piece of advice is try and figure out who your audience is and what they actually care about. And I've seen this time and time again where you have the same product manager interviewing at 3 different companies, and they can't just present themselves in the exact same way if they actually want to get an offer.
But by the
And
way,
it's not,
it's like a metaphor for product. You have to know your end user.
a little bit, yeah, yeah. Because the role is so different, you have to understand the details of what that role is for that company and represent yourself in that way. So I think that's really important. Uh, and something that I think a lot of people miss. They kind of just do the same thing for each company when those products are very different, the dynamics of the product team are very different, and the job can be different. The other thing I'd say is, especially for more junior people, it's just really important to prove that you can manage a product. And a lot of people that haven't put in a lot of reps, or they've only had roles that are highly specific and don't really cover a full product, it can be really hard as a hiring manager to feel that you can trust that person to make the right decisions, especially at early stage startups where a lot of their surface area is going to be more product like versus a feature or something like that. So, my first advice is like either have a side project or point to something that you did in your job that really shows off your ability to make difficult decisions product wise, whether that means being more data informed to make a decision, uh, understanding the customer better, making a hard decision. I think that is something that really proves experience and ability, is the ability to make a hard decision where there's no right answer, because in product management there isn't always a right answer. It isn't always, if you go this road you're going to be super successful, on this road you won't be. There's a huge middle there. So being able to make those tough decisions and prove that you've made those tough decisions and stood by them for certain reasons, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's a great take. I think I do love the metaphor, and it's something I would use similar is like, be the product and sell to your customers. And sometimes you have to be the product yourself. And, some techniques may not work, but it's all about pivoting and doing your own type of experimentation to see really what sticks. And I think curating it to the role, obviously, is probably the best advice of like every company is different. Every role in that company is even different. So it's like, how do your past experiences resonate with the hiring manager? So they kind of are a no-brainer for you to be your
What do you two think about when a candidate like goes through like actually uses the product and comes back to you with like Loom videos of ways they'd improve it, or like a whole doc, or like does like a tiny bit of work and sends your way? Are you a fan, or is it too thirsty? Is it too much?
Saam?
I mean, I feel like that would be great. I mean, it shows that they're dedicated to the craft, and they align with the mission, and they already have they can already just run with it. So
Yep.
it makes the decision a little easier, I'd imagine.
And if anything, I find it very common where they barely know the product at all. Now, obviously, there's certain enterprise use cases where like there's no ability for them to try it out, but I find there's a high percentage of candidates that really are not taking a hard look at it. And I understand you're interviewing in a lot of places, but to me, I think for a more quality interview, make sure that you look at the product and think about it. You don't have to send tons of feedback. But to be more familiar and to stew a little bit on that user psychology or what they're actually offering, I think really shows that they actually think you're special in all the companies that they're interviewing at.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for validating my existing opinion. I really do feel, as someone who's worked in like hiring tech for a while, that doing 10% like additional work, like doesn't even have to be that much, puts you ahead of like 95% of other people.
Oh yeah.
And also people want to hire people who can self-manage and take initiative on stuff, and just like showing a little bit that like, hey, this is just what I do. I think is good. Also, on the topic of hiring, do you recommend like trying to find your way into the inside, like when it comes to like understanding the hiring manager, finding someone that you kind of sort of know inside the company? Has that worked on you? Have you seen it? Have you done it?
I think the quick note for me is like, I know Twill's whole mission is about like using personal connections to then connect them with hiring managers, and I think that's a strong resonation for what I've seen as well. Of like, it may not get you the role, but it definitely will help to be able to know people from the inside and be able to vouch for you, and also to Matt's point, potentially get some insight into the actual products and maybe even learn more, and then take that on yourself and show your initiative and come back with some informed recommendations. So I think, yeah, a warm introduction always beats a cold introduction.
Yeah, I mean, just like in product, more information really helps, build the context and helps people get to if it's a right fit. And I've been in a situation where for me as a candidate, it's not the right fit once I figured out what they're actually looking for, right? And what they actually need. So definitely more information helps a lot in those instances. It won't be always the case, but definitely can be super helpful.
We're zooming out just a little bit on product. Where do you both see it going in the next couple of years? Where anywhere unexpected? Are product managers? Yeah, I don't know. Where do you see it going? And or specifically like product roles. Do you think we're going to get more specific with product roles? Or are we going to specifically have like AI product managers? Is it going to be like more function based? Are we going to have product managers that are just in charge of delight and human features, like because AI is building the basics? Like, do you think are you seeing more fractional stuff? Where do you think it's going? Where's your prediction? If you were Polymarket, where are you putting your money?
Well, I think I think that if anything, a lot of these tools will enable less people to do more. And so, if anything, I think some of the specialization that you see may be reduced a bit. Um, Also, I mean, for what it's worth, like where we are economically, especially in America, like there's budget tightening everywhere as well in tech. So I think those two things dovetail very well. You can get more efficiency, and the company, is not able to spend as much for specialization. So I think seeing less specialization, I could totally see being where some of this is going, because the ability to wear many hats and do a lot and handle the paperwork without it taking up all of your time, is getting a lot better. So I could see that in the future for sure. I think no matter what, you've got to have humans in the loop for a wide variety of things that you're shipping. So I don't I don't think there's going to be an AI product manager that does super well. I see it as more like there could be an agent that's helping a product manager manage something very well. So there could be a little bit of that, more of that. On the other hand, I know a lot of people like to take away that of like, oh shoot, the future is less junior PMs, right? And usually the takeaway of that is, oh man, it's going to be harder for people to get in at an entry level. But I actually disagree with that, because actually, if it's faster for you to be able to ramp up and do all these things as a product manager, if anything, it's faster for someone who's entry level to do the same things a more senior person might do, with more tools, right, and automation. So I think there's also opportunity there where you can see someone who's able to operate at a high level more quickly, with perhaps less experience, because some of the boilerplate stuff where you just got to do reps writing PRDs may not be as necessary, right?
Is this a way of saying a lot more is going to come down to making hard decisions between like competing priorities and taste?
Yeah, I mean, I think showing off your ability to do that, obviously there are varying levels of maturity there. So someone who's entry level may not be able to make some of those hard decisions because they're not easy, and there's not just one science to it. But someone who might be good at those things might not need to, learn all the ins and outs of some of the logistics pieces that sometimes you need to ramp up at a company, um, when you're entry level. So yeah.
It's an interesting take to think about of like the future of resumes and how important years of experience is versus actual impact driven. That's
Yeah.
interesting kind of takeaway. We'll see.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, how do you prove impact, at that point,
Yeah.
and things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Right. And like you're only as good as your engineers anyway. Matt, I know you used to be an engineer. Um, uh, and Sam, obviously, like you work with engineers. Any strong feelings or any strong feelings on how to work with engineers better, especially engineers that are going to be, using Cursor and Replit and AI in their general things.
Mhm.
Is anything changing for either of you about the ways that you work or manage the engineers on your team, the way you talk to them, the way you set expectations, um, the way you estimate how long things will take? Because like obviously we also all know that uh, nobody's good at estimating how long things take, even though we all think we are. And like putting AI in the mix is even skewing that more. Like some things that used to take 2 weeks can take a day, but other things are maybe getting more complicated and they're even going to take longer.
I think just my quick take is that the core of like my role is just making sure that we have alignment across the entire team and like everyone understands like what we're building and why. And I think the speed at which we're able to accomplish that now with AI has really accelerated, where you can make like even a lower fidelity, mock-up, but rather good and accurate of what the end product may look like, and have the engineers all even contribute feedback to that before it even, gets anywhere close to production is a pretty impressive feat, versus maybe pre-AI, like a scrappy PowerPoint that talks about features but doesn't really look very good, which can potentially also become, if they follow it step by step, actually match that PowerPoint, which is not a good thing. Not the intent of that PowerPoint.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think another thing to think about is like, it's making anyone be able to, build products quickly, right? So there's a little less of like, oh, I need to go through the product manager for this. And I can totally see that, right? Like as an engineer, it's like, what do I need to work with my PM and designer on this? I'll just like make it all and we'll be done with the thing that we need to do. And I would encourage that absolutely in terms of being able to build stuff faster and get alignment, right? Get people's feedback on it. But you can't escape that piece to it. Ultimately, like we're all people working in a team together, and in order for that team to work, people have to at some point agree on what they're working on and how they're working and what they're releasing to be a high functioning team. Um, and there needs to be collaboration. So I think it increases collaboration for sure. And I think it also helps bring the conversation to the actual pieces that matter instead of worrying about or toiling away trying to get a button to work the way that you want to work it. Instead, you're all more focused on what's the outcome you're trying to create and whether or not the thing that you just whipped up actually creates that outcome. And that's a conversation that is very much a product conversation. So I feel like a lot of PMs will love that that's where the conversation is. Sam, I'm sure you've been in stand-ups where most of the meeting is just derailed by technical details.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of times where you as a PM need to bring everyone back to the product conversation there. If this will reduce some of those, sticking points and you can keep the conversation there, I think that's great for everybody.
Last question for me. This is a question that I always ask on an interview. I like people who care about their craft and are regularly learning and improving and staying on top of whatever the latest thing is. So I'm always really curious, what product leaders out there do you look up to? What companies do you take inspiration from? If there's like a particular product philosophy that you care a lot about, or that you believe in. I'll give you mine lately. Uh, I'm a little bit over Scrum. I've been a little bit over Scrum because, I just think it relies too much on estimating how long things will take, and we just don't know. I've moved a lot closer to the Basecamp philosophy, like what they talk about with Shape Up, where they're like, hey, how much is this feature worth to us? And like, okay, we know how much our engineers and product managers cost, like, and based on that, we're like, okay, this is worth to us 4 weeks of effort. Let's try to build the best version of this that we can in 4 weeks, and then reevaluate. So like, that's mine. Also, don't say Lenny. We all know Lenny. If someone's on this, they know about Lenny's. We all know Lenny is good. Let's do like a little bit of a deeper cut. But yeah, who else do you like? Who do you follow? What companies, people, philosophies, etc. Also, you can say Lenny if you really want to say Lenny.
My biggest recommendation usually is Teresa Torres. Producttalk.org, I believe, is her website, and I'm very much a subscriber to being as iterative as possible about features, and her whole philosophy around continuous product discovery is exactly how I feel as well. You should always be garnering feedback and especially visualizing a lot of the decisions and ways you can go as essentially decision trees. I think is super helpful as a visual tool. So that's a big one that I'd recommend, and someone who I think is a fantastic product leader and advisor for the way that I like to build products. Yeah.
Well, my point to that, I think that's awesome. Obviously, Lenny, everyone knows Lenny. I think what I've been noticing is that there's obviously a lot of different AI, I'll call them gurus, that are kind of showcasing, like, here's what you can do with AI. Here's There's one in particular, I'm forgetting his name, but maybe I can put it in the chat after I look. But he created a really nice chart, and he always updates it real time, I think maybe week over week, because AI innovation is happening so fast. And he basically compares the different tool sets across, like from Gemini to OpenAI to Copilot, to talk about like best in class, does well, or like does not. So it's kind of like this like competitive chart, and I love that. And I think my point also is, okay, there's a lot of noise, but what I like to personally do is like actually go try the products as well, right? To get my like hands dirty and see, what I can actually do with them. So I think like learning is great, but then like taking the action, in my opinion, is more important, and really getting that experience. And I'll try to find it. I think I have the screenshot somewhere. I can put it in the chat.
Cool. Find it. Eliza will send it out because Eliza loves a good follow up. That's the humanness at work. Cool. Well, I think this is a nice place to leave it. But before we do, thanks again to Saam and to Matt. Do either of you have anything that you want to plug? Any side projects? Any any things that you've worked on that you're particularly proud of, or that people might enjoy?
Well, I see my LinkedIn on the broadcast, it looks like. So yeah, feel free to connect with me if you're watching. Hopefully this was a insightful session here. I had a lot of fun. It was really great to meet you both. But yeah, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll keep you posted on maybe some future updates here.
Are you anywhere else on the internet?
Mostly professionally LinkedIn. Haven't fallen too deep into X, but not as active there. But LinkedIn is definitely kind of where I've been.
Fair enough.
I would say one thing we talked about products, or you asked about products we like. One thing I didn't mention is I really love seeing the decentralized social media activity. So I'm on Mastodon and Blue Sky. I really like what both of those teams are doing product wise, and it's super interesting to follow. Not all great stuff, but there's a lot of, I love that they're pushing the envelope and getting a lot of feedback from people in real time and experimenting with a lot of things. So yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. Like I said, Blue Sky or Mastodon too.
What about your personal website?
And you can find all of these things on my personal website, which is eartothenoise.com.
Cool. Any other side projects that you want to promote, Matt?
I mean, I am working on realnice, which is a simple website builder, which allows me to build my personal website. So if you do need a personal website, check it out. I built mine with it, and there's a lot you can build with it. But no, that's it. I'm working on a lot of different projects, but that's it for me. Find me. I love to talk product.
Yes, I do think that something that is common amongst good product people is they enjoy the craft. They like talking about it. I do feel like it's getting even a little less technical and a little more philosophical, which is good. Obviously, got to plug Twill. I'll just share a really quick personal thing. I'm the product lead at Twill. The reason I joined Twill is because every actually good job I've ever gotten in my life has been through a referral. Also, 90% of everyone I've really loved working with after hiring in my life has come through referral. And this is after, so many years in big companies and startups. Like, there is something just super wonderful about a referral. And I ended up at Twill because of a very loose contact who ended up referring me, and it has been lovely. So yeah, definitely join Twill as a member. The other reason I'm here is, and this will never change, Twill wants to be members first. We want to treat members incredibly well so that you will refer fantastic candidates, and then in turn treat your candidates really well. And that's what we know will make the companies that we work with really happy. And I feel really strongly that that's the order. Michelle, the CEO, feels the same way. And that's the driving force between everything on the product side. So lots of new product things are coming soon, some sorting, some filtering, and a whole new look and feel, because we got an actual designer to do the next version, and we are implementing it as we speak. So give us 2 weeks or so. With that, definitely join Twill. There's a human in the loop every step of the way. We don't want to be a faceless, nameless megacorp. We're just trying to make hiring suck a lot less for everybody. So thanks a ton all for joining, and we'll see you on the next one of these. Hopefully these are valuable and raw and fun and all that good stuff. Have a great rest of your Thursday, all. Toodaloo, as Eliza would say.